Okay, so we are back for another episode on Soap Talk Nation. And today's broadcast, I am your host, Zakia, also known as Soap Lady Z. And what we will be talking about is the infamous packaging. So that was just an obligatory to kind of make it intriguing. So I'm actually sitting here packaging up handcrafted soap. And what I am thinking about is when I first started making soap, how overwhelmed and underwhelmed at the same time I was in terms of making and selling and shipping and packaging the soap. And what I have come to realize is it's not so much about what goes into the package, but what is actually in the package. Now, that does not mean don't do anything for your packaging. That just means don't fret so much over the packaging, especially when you are first getting started. When you are first getting started with making your soap, what you are attempting to figure out is, what do your customers like? And if you spend 15 hours, 20 days, or 6 months in some cases fretting over that, you may find that you have wasted some valuable time and you may be packaging up something that people don't even want. So what I would say is there are a couple of options. Number one, the very first thing that I used when I was packaging my soap was shrink wrap. You got it. And that stuff, or it's cling wrap, I should say, not shrink wrap. I now use shrink wrap today, but that stuff is kalangi, but it gets the job done in terms of protecting your soap. So there's a couple of things that you are looking for with the packaging. Number one, especially if you do like really crafty, really artistic bars of soap, you don't want to then turn around and put that in a box where nobody can see it, because that artsiness, that craftiness of it all is actually going to be what draws people's attention to your product. So if you have stuffed that away in a cardboard box, people are going to miss that. And that's a really easy selling point. So let's start at the beginning. What are some of the options that you have available for wrapping up your soap? Number one, go naked. Not like streaking down the street, but naked is a real thing. Especially if you are, but that can be tricky too. So let me back up there, because if you are selling your soap, let's say like at a farmer's market or something along those lines, you don't want people touching all over your soap, because at the end, somebody's going to take that home, hopefully, and use it to bathe. And if they got a ton of germs on there, you've just sold them some dirty soap. You have just sold them some dirty soap. That's an oxymoron, and it's also not cool. However, some people do sell naked bars, and if you want to go that route, what you could do is you just have one sample bar out that people can touch and feel and look at and love and adore. And then when they decide to actually purchase it, you can give them a clean bar that you already have ready to go. The next option up from that is to use some kind of cigar band where you wrap it. It's not completely covering the soap, but it actually has the label and the ingredients listed on the cigar band that are going around it. You've probably seen them. It looks like a little band, maybe a quarter of the size of the bar, and it's wrapped all the way around the soap. And that will allow you to quickly put a little bit of branding on there, if you will. You can also put the name of the soap. You should put the name. Hopefully you're naming your soap. That's like having a baby and not giving it a name. You got to give your soap a name. And you would put that on the cigar band along with the weight, as well as the ingredients that are in your soap and your company's name. The next thing that you can do is shrink wrap. And shrink wrap, I think, is one of the most popular methods for wrapping your soap and packaging your soap because it seals it in. So you don't have to worry about being at that farmer's market or at a craft fair, or when you're selling your soap online and you're shipping it out. People get something to actually open. So what I would say with that, you pretty much use shrink wrap plastic, which is what you hear me using right now. You also need a heat sealer as well. Well, you may not need it depending on the type of shrink wrap that you have. But I use a heat sealer and a heat gun. So the heat sealer is actually going to seal both ends so that your soap ends up in a package like. And then you use your heat gun to seal all of the plastic so that it's adhered to the entire bar of soap. And then with that, you could also dress it up a little bit with a cigar band on top of what has been sealed. And then finally, you can just put a label on it. Put a label on it. And when you put your label on it, of course, you would have the name of the soap, the name of your company, the ingredients that you're using, or the ingredients that are included in there, the weight of the soap, as well as where your shop is located. So the reason why we wanted to do this particular episode on Soap Talk Live is because a lot of people fret over this. I was one of those people who completely fretted over the packaging of the soap. And what you will find is, unless you have customers that are chomping at the bit to do an unboxing on social media, there's a lot of people that want to do that, but there's also a lot of people that just want good, handcrafted, natural soap. And if you are just starting out the gate, there's a lot of things you have to worry about. Like, is the soap going to lather? Is the soap going to actually cleanse? Are my colors going to remain true? How is this scent going to react? Adding that packaging piece on when you are so new in your soaping it could be detrimental, and it could be a complete standstill for your soap making and your handcrafted business. That's not to say that packaging is not important, because it actually is important. People make purchasing decisions based on what they see first. They buy with their eyes. So where I'm going with that is, you got into handcrafted soap making to get away from commercial stuff. Don't spend all of your time trying to make your product look so commercial when you are first getting started. Yes, packaging is that first impression, but the lasting impression is how the soap actually makes the individual feel. So consider that. This has been another episode where we are talking about packaging for the handcrafted artisan. I am so glad that you all stuck around, and obliged me. If you are catching this on a replay later on, I am glad that you did. Be sure to leave me some comments. You can always stay up to date by heading over to the blog at livesoapschool.com, where, of course, you all know, or maybe you don't if this is your first time, it is so much more than soap. I really hope that when you are packaging your soap, it is just an additional layer of what you have created inside of that package. That is the most important part. Do not allow the branding gurus, the marketing gurus, and all of them to add one more layer of confusion on what it is that you are trying to do with your handcrafted soap. Most likely, you got into handcrafted natural soap for the ingredients. You got into it to express your creativity. Don't let your creativity be halted because you feel like the packaging needs to fit some mold, some commercial brand, something that some guru has said, and you are not able to move forward in getting your product out there for the masses to love. I am Soap Lady Z of livesoapschool.com, and you have just listened to another episode. Have a great night or day or morning or afternoon, and make sure you stay connected at livesoapschool.com.